Hello, and welcome to the 2016 Customer Experience Virtual Event, Engaging the Demanding Customer. My name is Molly Feiner with Argyle Executive Forum, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. I have a few administrative details to share with you, and then I will turn things over to our esteemed speakers. First, we would like to thank 24/7 for their partnership with today's event. They've been a wonderful thought leadership partner to Argyle and are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. So thank you again to 24/7. We appreciate you joining us today. We welcome you to stay connected during today's event. You can also follow us on Twitter at Argyle Exec Forum, and be sure to join our LinkedIn group, Customer Experience Forum. I also wanted to take a moment to touch on our content neutrality policy, which we've curated based on the feedback we've received over the years from our members. Argyle is very proud and protective of this policy, as it reflects our commitment to ensure the neutrality and overall value of the content presented at our events. We work closely with our speaking faculty to ensure that you receive a set of balanced and neutral viewpoints during the session today, and we appreciate our members' support of this policy. We will send a brief feedback survey to you following the event, and we'd greatly appreciate your feedback as it helps us to make sure we are always improving your experience. If you have any immediate feedback, please don't hesitate to reach us at feedback@argyleforum.com. I also wanted to mention a sampling of our upcoming Customer Experience Leadership Forums that may be of interest to you. We'll be in San Francisco on December 15th, in Dallas on February 8th, in Atlanta on March 16th, in San Francisco again on March 23rd, and in Toronto on March 30th. Finally, and most importantly, please submit any and all questions that come up during today's event into the Q&A section of. Set aside some time for our speakers to weigh in on these questions. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Reagan Miller, Vice President of Chat Agent Services at 24/7. We are pleased to have Reagan with us to deliver opening remarks. Welcome, Reagan, and over to you.
Looking forward to our panel discussion, but first I want to share a few thoughts about the complex space of consumer interaction. So let's dive right in. First, I want to introduce you to Khloe. Khloe is a sister to some of you. She's a daughter to some of us. She's soon to be a wife to someone. She's got a great job she's passionate about. She has a growing circle of friends and people who are influencers in her life. She's just finished binging the brand new series, This Is Us, all at once. She did it last night because she'd rather wait till the end of the season to watch them all at once than wait every week for a new episode, just like me, maybe you. She likes to do business with companies that she feels connected to. Now, if you were to look at the front page of her iPhone, then the phone app is not even going to be there. For Khloe, it's in a folder somewhere on the second page because she doesn't really use her phone that much, just on occasion. She certainly does for work, but for her personal life, not so much. Otherwise, it really is just all messaging and personal voice conversations are probably going to be on FaceTime. But even for that, she has a very strict rule that video is not allowed on FaceTime before 8 a.m. So who is this Khloe person? And the answer is she is Gen C. Now, what does the C in Gen C stand for? It stands for content, right? It's very important to understand that Gen C is a pervasive force in our world today. It's also important to understand that it's not synonymous with millennials. Most of these folks in Gen C, they are under the age of 35. And I'm sure all of us know plenty of people who are under 35, but also older than 35, who really could be considered to be part of Gen C. So like my 75-year-old father, he's absolutely Gen C. He Snapchats my 19-year-old daughter all the time. I don't even have Snapchat on my phone. So I guess I need to get it. But how many 60-year-olds this year do you think bought something online? How many 20-year-olds bought something online? Everyone's doing it, and everyone who's doing that is really part of the Gen C group, right? Gen C doesn't also just sort of span generations. It also includes everyone who creates, curates, and consumes all of this content. And we do it to create the connection with people that we want to be close to. And we also do it because we might find new people that we want to be close to out there in the universe. So Gen C really, when it comes down to it, is really all about what the other part of C means, which is community. And Gen C isn't just on social media every single day. It's really, really important to them. And when it comes to dealing with enterprises, they want to buy things and interact with brands who know them, just like their community does. Successful brands in the next 10 years will be those who become part of Gen C's personal community. And let me say that again a little bit differently. Successful brands will present themselves to and participate in the community of Gen C. It's not just about matching a need with a solution or having a hip new product or making things effortless and simple. That's all important, but in today's economy and in today's consumer interaction environment, those things are all just table stakes. But now we have to connect in a personal way so that it's just as natural for Khloe to send that new hilarious kitty cat cupcake video to her BFF using Facebook Messenger, as it is to use Facebook Messenger to interact with an enterprise and ask about why she hasn't received the UPS package with the new shoes that she bought on Monday. So let's be clear, Gen C and Khloe and all of us are loaded, right? We are where the dollars reside, and we are where the new economy all around the globe is going to reside. So what does all this mean, and what do we need to do? So what I want to do today is I want to recommend 6 strategies for becoming a trusted, embedded brand inside of Gen C's community. And they are, first of all, being channel agnostic. The second one is being intent driven. The third is ensuring that we're caring for journeys from the consumer journeys from end to end. Next is having this effortless experience. Next is having this real-time deep intelligence in terms of what your consumers are trying to do. And finally is the unified agent desktop. And we're going to talk about these one by one pretty quickly here. So what does it mean to be channel agnostic, the first point? If you were to ask Khloe, she'd tell you that her community migrates apps over time. Snapchat's all the rage now because of Storyline, but Facebook might be back in the driver's seat in a month if it enables a great new way to connect. And there's so many other ways to connect via social media. And it changes over time in different communities. And most importantly, Khloe's purchase path, as shown in this example, will probably traverse a number of different channels. Now, if she's looking, let's say, for a new phone, for example, she might start on the web and do some research about upgrades with her current company. And then she might reach out to her community to ask who loves their phone and who would recommend it. And then she'll see a Google ad along the way for a new device or a plan. She might call that company, which is a different company, a couple of times to clarify the plan details. She might then chat on her mobile device, go back to call them, and then finally go purchase on the web and then walk into the store and pick it up. The takeaway here is that every channel must be connected, and we have to not just follow Khloe with context, but anticipate her next move or moves and be ready to act and engage in every channel. We have to be channel agnostic because Khloe is channel agnostic. And when we become channel agnostic and the channels are connected via a common single-threaded platform, then we can maintain the context of what Khloe is doing even when she switches channels and when she starts and stops over a period of days or weeks or hours, as the case may be. And we also need to understand that expectations for the cadence of interactions are beginning to change. 10 years ago, if I didn't want to call somebody, I had to send an email. And I was glad to get a response on the next day, right? 5 years ago, I learned that I could chat and get an answer right away. But today, if Khloe texts her friend, let's say she texts one of her best friends, and then he texts back immediately, it's fine. But it's also okay if he texts back in an hour, or maybe even later on that afternoon. So these semi-synchronous communications are the way that Gen C expects to interact. And it's very different than the cadence of communication in the last 5 or 10 years. So when we enable this multi-channel strategy in a smart way that ties them all together, now we have the framework for creating the community that Gen C is looking for. We can be proactive or we can be reactive. And both Khloe and we have all of our previous conversations recorded in one place. And we could even throw in a virtual agent or a bot to answer some of her questions along the way in various channels. And she'd love it. not because it's cool to interact with a bot, but because she doesn't really care if it's a person or not, as long as she gets the answer she's looking for or is able to complete the journey that she's on. Now, one of the other keys to communicating with Khloe and being part of her community is not only knowing who she is, but knowing what she likes, what she dislikes, what she wants, and what she needs. And that's easy if you own the clothing boutique that she stops into every month, because you literally know her. But it's a real challenge when you're a top-line retailer, let's say, and it's even harder when she's new to your brand. The only way to pull this off is with data, also with really smart intent models and machine learning. Now, I'm hesitant here to use the term AI, but that's really where all of this is headed. It's about using data in the context of her journey, where she is, to determine not only who is she, but what is it that she's trying to do, and what is it she's going to do next. And that's the way community operates. If you think about it, in our personal networks, my wife or my best friend, these people, they know what I'm up to and they know what I'm going to be doing next. And so I'm not surprised if I get a text from somebody saying, hey, how are you feeling? Sorry you had that health problem last week, because they already know. And I'm also not surprised that my wife knows what I want for the upcoming holidays, because I've told her, and hopefully she's listening. And I think that's kind of part of the point here, is that large enterprises, we know where our consumers live, right? And so, you have kind of two examples here. One is, we might reach out to somebody differently in San Francisco than we would someone in New York. And we also really know what they like. And so why not customize and personalize these interactions across channels and time spans to reflect what an individual person might like? So in other words, if you're a person who likes mountain biking, you're going to get the car with the mountain bike next to it, as compared to the person who likes to go out canoeing or river rafting, as the case may be. So if we know what people, where they live, and we know what people like, and we know what they're doing online, particularly when we're channel agnostic and the channels are connected, and all of this data then can feed this machine or the intent models that give us what we need to instantly join into Khloe's community and to be relevant in curating content for her that inspires transactions and facilitates this ongoing relationship that's so very valuable to enterprises. And if you think about it, we could even transform what was once nothing more than just a transaction, and we can create an emotional connection with her through the way we interact and the channels that we interact through, and by knowing her in the ways that we can through all of our data. And here's the part that CMOs and chief customer officers both love. We can be proactive because we have all this data. So this brave new world of channel orchestration enables a rich environment of insights that most of us would just love to get our hands on. And it's not just demographics and journeys. What your customers are actually saying to you, or in this case, when you think about digital interactions, what they're typing to you, that's where the gold mine really is. Every organization should develop the ability to text mine at scale the vast amounts of transcript data that you have, which is unstructured data, because your consumers are providing it to you every single day. And what we have found is that when you combine the analysis with the structured data and the unstructured data, you unlock insights that are really rich and provide real insights into how your customers are interacting with you, how they feel about interacting with you, and maybe most importantly, what it is that they're going to do next. This is our chance to find out what Khloe really wants, and it's also your chance to find out whether you have made it into her community. And as a final point, I think it's important for us to consider the impact and the role of the modern live agent. If a random agent is going to jump into Khloe's world as part of her quote-unquote community, then that agent's job, if you think about it, it just got a lot harder. So, unifying all of our channels, modeling intent, text mining interactions, virtual agents and bots that are front-ending these interactions, all of this has a massive impact on the ways in which live agents can and the way they should interact with our consumers. Beyond the blocking and tackling and the kind of call center stuff or contact center business of hiring the right people and training them and retaining them, we have to equip them differently. So we should envision a desktop environment that informs the agent, enables the agent with modern interaction tools. It's simple and it's functional, and it prompts the agent in a way that's aligned with the intent models and equips the agent to help the consumer to resolve and deepen their brand affinity. So that's it for everybody for the presentation. I'd like to thank you for your attention during this first part. I hope that was informative, and I hope it was thought-provoking and really teased up some good discussion in our panel discussion. And then toward the end here, we're going to have some Q&A. So Molly, I'll just turn it back over to you very quickly for a quick introduction.
Great. Thanks so much, Reagan. I think that was a really great discussion. I just wanted to remind all of our listeners to please continue submitting any questions you have in the Q&A interface. And then following our panel discussion, we've set aside some time for them to weigh in on these questions. So we'll now go ahead and kick off our panel titled Leveraging Omnichannel Services to Connect with the Customer. Today's panel will also be moderated by Reagan. So Reagan, the floor is yours.
Okay, great, thanks. So let's just do a quick round of introductions. Tracy, can I ask you to go first and introduce yourself?
Of course. Hi, everybody. This is Tracy Brown. I'm the Vice President of Client Account Management with ADP. I've been with ADP for about 2 years now and come from a background of technology and talent consulting, as well as working in HR for a long time on the corporate side of the house. So I'm excited to be part of the panel.
Great, thanks, Tracy. And Ali, can I ask you to go next?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Ali Mangi. I lead the customer experience design function at Rogers Communications, which is Canada's largest telco. And my team is essentially responsible for supporting our consumer, enterprise, and media business units with intentional interaction design for all new products and services across all brands and channels. And my previous background is in operations, strategy, and business transformation.
Great, Ali. Thank you so much. And Gil?
Yep, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Gil Martin. I work at Wells Fargo's Treasury Management Client Delivery Group. Been with Wells Fargo for 16 years. I lead a team of 250 service professionals across 5 cities. We're located in Jacksonville, Winston-Salem, Minneapolis, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. We are a contact center moving towards being more of an engagement center. Our client base includes small and middle market businesses as well as large corporate customers. Prior to this role, I oversaw the commercial card and electronic deposit channels here at Wells Fargo.
That's great, Gil. Thank you so much. So let's dive right into our conversation here. The first question, and Gil, I'm going to ask you to lead us off here. The first question we want to talk about is what are the fundamental tenets of your customer service or customer service interaction strategy?
Sure. So our core value centers really around the concept of providing A+ customer service in every customer interaction. What this means is delivering exceptional customer service and being trusted advocates for our customers. What we're striving for here is the customer interactions to be as effortless as possible, which I like seeing what you put in your presentation there. We connect with our customers by building relationships. We deliver responsive and reliable service with a personal touch so that customers feel like we know them, that we understand them, and that we appreciate them. So in providing this great customer service, we are responding to our customers quickly and competently, and it also means communicating with them in a manner that they wish to be communicated. So an example of this is all of our CSOs, customer service officers, including our managers, they're required to go through training. And the key element of the training program is really to teach our CSOs how to identify a customer's communication style and adapt or flex to their customer service to meet that style. This helps put the customer and their unique communication needs at the center of what we do. The individual communication styles also plays an important role within our service center because it improves the team member communication between team members, between managers, between each other. Our CSOs are coached to adapt to our customer communication style. For example, someone who is a socializer. Our CSOs will be sure to ask about their day, the weather, et cetera, and then launch into understanding the issue and work towards a quick resolution. But if someone's a director type, they know that this person really wants to get to the issue, not to make small talk, and the goal is to get it done. A thinker is someone we will need more time to make a decision or will need more time to make a decision, and then they would probably want more details no matter how small. And then a relator is someone that we feel needs to express their feelings. our CSOs will ask them how are they feeling, and they'll empathize with them. They'll say, I understand your frustrations. Basically, relators need to feel their emotions are being recognized. So what's great about all of this is our customer satisfaction surveys have reflected this training. Our overall customer satisfaction scores are in the 90s. The ability to resolve inquiries to satisfaction is also in the 90s. And the knowledge to resolve inquiries has also been in the 90s. So we're pretty pleased with that. But we recognize that we need to flex and adjust to the way we speak with our customers.
That's great. That's a really great example of how to use data to inform an agent in this case and help them to understand the person they're dealing with and then be able to make accommodations in the way they interact, right? And from an efficiency perspective, it sounds like there's a lot of efficiency there, certainly effectiveness with your CSAT scores being over 90%. What a great example. Tracy, I want to ask you to jump in here. And one of the things I liked that Gil said is that these trusted advisors, their primary goal is to build relationships. And that's really what we're talking about when we're talking about getting inside people's community. And Tracy, in your role, how do you guys accomplish that?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I actually think we're very similar to what Gil and his organization is doing in that our teams go through, we call it stellar service training. Everybody has their different names, but it is to do and follow those same tenets that Gil was talking about, the effortless experience and knowing who your clients are, your customers are. And the big thing we talk to our service consultants about is that they're not order takers. They've got to be consultative. They've got to provide direction to their clients. And that goes to what Gil was saying, by identifying who your client is, knowing who your client is, and you, adapting your communication style to that person. We talk a lot about how we've got to be more proactive than reactive, and we're going to talk about that in one of the following questions. But I tell you, it's really about making sure that you have that relationship with the client. And you can't build that relationship if you have a traditional call center experience where they don't get the same person when they come in. So we at ADP are spending a lot of time with what we call designated service reps. They have a named person that they get and that we strive to get them to every time they call in. So that relationship and that one-on-one emotional, you mentioned in your presentation earlier, that emotional interaction that you want to have with one of your customers is really built and forged throughout the life of the relationship. Was there any follow-up question to that one, Gil? Or Reagan?
Yep. Yeah, this is Reagan. So, one of the things that you mentioned about, creating these trusted advisors and making sure that they're not order takers, I think that it's important for us to also think through the fact that investing in the time that's required to establish and maintain these kinds of relationships, there's a cost associated with that. And so just a follow-up question for really anybody on the panel would be, when you think about justifying additional cost for spending a little bit more time with somebody on the phone, or the investment into resources that will help you accomplish a deeper relationship interaction without the extra time, it's going to require some investment. How do you justify those investments up front?
Well, I'll start there. I'm sure everybody has, this is Tracy, an answer to this, but I will tell you justifying the cost is really shown through customer retention numbers. The higher your retention number, we've seen our retention number be very high based on that relationship our service consultants and our teams have. And we've seen it decline when we try to go to a lower cost model. So your ends justify your means. You spend a little bit more to build the relationship, but you keep those customers sticky and longer. And ADP's got clients that have been clients of ours for 30 and 40 years. So I think that we've done a good job at finding that model.
And this is Gil, and I agree with what Tracy.
Go ahead, Gil.
And I agree with what Tracy's saying. It's really customer retention that we're focusing on. What we've also done with our CSOs, we've made it known or made it clear that we're not focusing on average hold time or average talk time. We want that resolution, that CSO to stay with the customer and resolve that issue from beginning to end, no matter how long it takes. So, but then we're seeing it in our customer retention, and we're also adding additional products to this customer because we're able, while they're having conversations, our CSOs are able to identify solutions to say, have you considered this product or this product? And so we're adding additional products to make it sticky, as Tracy said, and we've kept these customers for a long time.
That's really great. Ali, do you have anything to add here?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'd say is that, at Rogers, what we're doing is we're really looking at, dissecting that journey and understanding what's the value across the various touch points along that journey, both to the business and to the customer, right? So, we may look at something like a residential move, for instance, someone that's moving homes and they want to move their cable TV and their internet services, and naturally one might say, hey, let's make that a low touch experience. Let's put it all online. But what we do is we evaluate and we say, hey, you know what? There actually might be business value in forcing a conversation around some of those things, because when someone's moving, they might be reevaluating their services. They might be moving from a condo to a house, and that's actually a good opportunity to try and potentially cross-sell or upsell them. And so, ultimately we want to digitize everything, but what we look at it is, where's the value to the customer and where's the value to the business? So for instance, something like a move, we might say, hey, let's make that a higher touch transaction. Let's have the conversation, and that might be a little bit more cost to serve up front. But, where we really want to digitize things is low value to the business, low value to the customer. So where we get a ton of calls is, after someone's placed a move order and they're trying to find out, hey, where's my technician? Or they want to make a change to their appointment. So for something like that, we want to embed capabilities. We just launched something about a month ago around being able to track your technician online. So we would send you a confirmation, with a link. You can use that link to change your appointment or track your technician. So that's where we're really saving the customer time. So I think it's really balancing the cost to serve with the revenue potential as well as the customer experience.
That's a great answer. Gil, I have one more follow-up here for you, and that is, as we think about digitizing interactions, in other words, having somebody who used to call about a particular issue now being able to interact through some form of text-based communication, regardless of the channel. It could be chat, maybe it's Messenger, whatever the case may be. It seems like the ability to match the value that Ali was talking about with a digital interaction is beginning to converge. In other words, digital interactions more and more seem to be able to facilitate the transaction of the interaction that's going to drive the value to the business more so than they used to be able to. Part of that is proliferation of channels, and some of that is levels of sophistication from an agent perspective, and also part of it is just sort of a consumer demand in terms of technologies. But I'm curious from your perspective, when you think about deepening relationships through digital channels in particular, what's happening at Wells Fargo?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and I think you're jumping to one of our questions below, but we are looking at, we do realize that today we mostly receive our inquiries or calls by phone or email. So we do have an email channel that's getting larger and larger each time, but we are trying to prepare for the text, the chat, and all of those functionalities. So we're recognizing that we need to get there in order to be competitive. And so one of the tools that we're building, and I liked your presentation that you presented, is that we are putting together a basically unified system that has all the information to give the CSOs the ability to see everything and have everything they need to know about that customer that they're speaking to. So whether their preferences by text, by chat, we're going to have, that is our goal, is to get to that point.
That's great. Appreciate that. So on to the next question here, and Ali, I'm going to ask you to jump in. And the question is, how do you address the challenge of matching customer journeys and channels? And what are some of the best practices for maintaining context and personalization across channels and also across spans of time?
Sure. Thanks, Reagan. So yeah, just to answer the first part, I guess, broadly speaking, we want customers to be able to interact through the channel of their choice, right? And so, that's the ideal goal. But of course, as we just discussed, you want to make sure you're striking the optimal balance between the customer experience, the cost to serve to the business, as well as, potential revenue opportunity, or even in some instances, revenue melt potential, which, the businesses are very much concerned about. And so, what we're doing at Rogers is, first and foremost, it's critical to understand that, we don't want to try and boil the ocean. And so what we try to do is align on what are the, 1, 2, or 3 key journeys that we want the organization focused around, and really rally, get the top-down support around those, and make sure that there's a concerted effort around optimizing those journeys. And so we chose 3 journeys at Rogers, and one of them is, for instance, a wireless renewal, right? So someone that's approaching the end of their 2-year term on their iPhone, and they want to get a new one. They're going to recommit with us potentially for 2 years, and so that's one of the hero journeys we want to focus on. And so what we do is, going back to your earlier point about getting real-time data, so we've built up pretty robust, data analytics capabilities where now we can start tracking customers along that key journey. And, the other key point you mentioned, Reagan, is looking at the end-to-end journey. So it's not just about that trigger transaction where they walked into a store to complete the renewal, or they did it online or through the call center. It's looking at it end-to-end. So we've got the capability now to use that trigger transaction as the key, but we're then looking 15 days back, and then we're looking 45 to 60 days post-transaction to make sure that we're looking at the entire journey. And what that data is allowing us to do is say, hey, you know what, we're noticing that customers on average are going, 3 or 4 times online before they're actually then going into store to complete their transaction. And as you can imagine, there's, hundreds of thousands of different permutations of these journeys. But as you start getting the data, you can start noticing patterns. And as you look at those patterns, you can start making correlations to say, hey, you know what, there's something here. And when you start layering the net promoter score of these customers, what you start seeing is, hey, what does a good journey look like, both to a business and to the customer? A good journey to the business would be low cost to serve, low, high touch transactions, high NPS. And then what we can do is start optimizing those. So where there's opportunity, we can start looking at and saying, hey, where do we fix things? Where we see that there's an optimal journey with a high NPS, how do we replicate that? How do we come up with capabilities and tactics to entice customers, to go down those paths? And so that's kind of how we're tackling it from our end. And the other thing that this has shown us is, for instance, we might think, if we're just looking at a transactional basis, that, hey, we've got a ton of customers that are going online and completing their renewals online. That's great. You'd think this is excellent. But if you're seeing that post transaction in the 30 days following that, they ended up calling into our call center 3 or 4 times, that's obviously not moving the needle at all in terms of improving the journey. And so what that data helps us do is go back and optimize those journeys, and then again making sure that we're finding the right areas of value for both the customer and the business, and developing tactics to make sure that we're bringing customers along the right path, or what we think to be a good path for them. That's the first part. And sorry, you'll have to repeat the second part of the question, Reagan.
Yes, the second part was about maintaining context and personalization across channels and time spans.
Yeah, okay. So, this is key. You've touched on some of this already, Reagan. We all know the most frustrating thing, even as consumers ourselves, when we're along a journey or a certain path, and, you've got an issue, and it might be your second or third time trying to get it resolved, or you've been punted around to different groups. There's nothing more frustrating than having to start again from scratch because, that person doesn't have the information. That's being exacerbated now on a whole new level because of some of the points you mentioned, Reagan, around these omni-channel journeys where, someone could be, starting their journey online, and then, they decide to go into a store after, or they decide to call into the call center. So it's critical to, as you said, having that single-threaded platform. That's probably the key that we're working on right now. This is not an easy nut to crack, particularly in the wireless side. The communication side in general. You've got a lot of different legacy systems. Our retail staff don't have the same front-end systems as our call center. That's obviously different than what we have online. So, one of the big endeavors that we're kind of putting in place, which we see as table stakes, goes back to the point you were making, Reagan, around that single-threaded platform, that at least at a customer or agent-facing level, renders the same information in a consistent manner in a real-time fashion, so that someone, a customer that might have seen an order, an offer online and a promo, and they might have put it on their shopping cart and saved it. If they call into the call center the next day, or if they walk into a retail store, our store rep can still see that quote and they can see that offer and they can pick up where they left off. So, I'd say that's a work in progress. But some of the best practices I think you've already outlined in making sure that your supporting staff across all of the channels as well as the customer review can display that information in a consistent and constant basis.
Ollie, that's great. Just really, really super answer and really good discussion points. One of the things I picked up on that you said is, how do we entice a customer into a particular channel? And what I heard you say was that the value to the consumer and the value to the business have to be taken into consideration. And that's the way that you identify these sort of key journeys so that you're not boiling the ocean. And so just a question for the rest of the panel, or Ollie, if you'd like to respond as well. How do we then, once we understand these pathways for interactions that make sense for the consumer and for the enterprise, how then do you create this sort of enticing way for them to interact? In other words, how would you encourage them to chat about that particular issue rather than pick up the phone and call? And I'll just leave that an open question for the panel.
Yeah, so I'll answer quickly first. From my perspective, it's how easy is it? So if you are send an SMS or send a communication and you've got something like a chat button right there, which is a lot easier to use it, you can go as so far as, there's a fine line because you don't want to make contact information difficult to see, but making your website and those links and the chat buttons and all of that more prominent than things like your toll-free number would kind of help with that behavior. And then there's more overt things like our base management, we will send text messages to customers with certain offers, and they just need to respond to the text. Like they're not even told to go into a store or call in. The only way to get that offer is through that channel. Similarly, online, what we're looking at is having online-only specials. So the only way you can actually get that offer will be online. So you've got to be careful as you go about these things, and there's certainly some risks associated with doing that. But there's certainly ways to get customers to engage with the channels that you want them to more often with things like that.
Yeah, and
Gil, I think in your environment. Go ahead, Tracy.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, it might be even in Gil's environment of what he's dealing with, but I know with ADP, most of the time, the clients, the customers that we're trying to get to engage with us, we're trying to get them to engage through a channel that is going to be beneficial for both, but they're not getting a new deal or something like that out of it. And so we've spent a lot of time figuring out ways to incentivize our clients to understand the easier to get them to go down that behavior. And we created a program that's worked really well here at ADP called Ambassador Rewards. And I can't take credit for it. We have our DVP over that group, Beth Zampieri, and her team created it. And it basically is a gamified way of getting our clients to try new channels or try and learn new things. So it gamifies, it gives them points so they can earn different things, but it helps to change their behavior. A payroll consultant that is so used to always just typing an email when they need something answered, we start giving them points and enticing them to do and rewarding them to do something different by entering it through an online program or whatever it might be. So then that behavior changes for them. And it takes a little bit longer because they're not getting a new phone or a new service out of it. It's just something that we believe is going to help them and us service them better. I hope that made sense. It just is a little different when you're not selling something to the client.
Well, I think that makes a lot of sense. And to your point, in Ali's example, he's putting that device on which he can interact right in the hands of the customer, and that sort of is the service. And I'm not meaning to say that's easier. In fact, that might even present some unique challenges. But this idea of gamifying to get consumers to try new channels is really fascinating. Thanks for sharing that, Tracy. That's good stuff. And Gil, I have a question for you.
Tracy.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Gil, I have a question for you around authentication. I think in the banking financial services sector, the two-factor authentication requirement is really important. And are you finding that that's inhibiting your ability to expand channel interactions?
Yeah, so that is exactly what's going to be my comment, is that we have challenges because, with banking, there are security concerns and privacy concerns on the whole authentication of passing back and forth financial data. So what we're looking at with the chat function, for example, is that we're realizing that it may not be offered to everyone. The model that we have within Treasury Management is that depending on the client and revenue and relationship, they may have what's called a dedicated customer service officer who just is decked against their portfolio and is basically on call 24/7 by that customer to service that person. Whereas within my group, I'm much closer to a call center where we take all calls, meaning that customers are not necessarily are not decked against us or dedicated. So with the dedicated functionality, they are testing and piloting out chat. So that's where we are in our organization. Is we're in a pilot stage right now. We actually reach out to the customers that we think may benefit off of it and ask them if they're willing to pilot this. And so that's how we're getting feedback in order to enhance it or to make it more secure or whatever we need to do to make sure that we're servicing them.
That's great, Gil. Appreciate that. Good insight. Thanks, everybody, for that discussion. Let's move to the next question here. And Tracy, I'm going to ask you to kick us off. And the question is, what does your customer need? And how do you know that? And how do you anticipate their intent in any one single interaction or just across their life cycle?
Yeah. So I thought long and hard about this question and trying to be really innovative about what customer needs and what they are. And honestly, it comes down to problem resolution. They need their questions answered, their problems fixed, whatever it might be. When they call, they need to get an answer. And so from ADP's standpoint, I think anybody's standpoint, honestly, there's your proactive and reactive approach to this. You can, and we all do this, is the client calls, the customer calls, you pick up the phone, you hear their question, and you do everything you can to resolve that question, answer the question as you go forward. We can track those through, first call resolution, time to close, all of those metrics that you typically see in customer service organizations. But what ADP is trying to get better and better about as we continue to evolve, and honestly our customer base continues to evolve, is that proactive, identifying those customer needs and their problems proactively. And we can do that tactically by reviewing all the themes. I think it was, as Ali mentioned it earlier, on the fact that you got to look, what have they called in about? What have they done before? What's happening 30 to 45 days after to see, are you finding the root cause? So we go through those tactical exercises of digging and mining that data. But from a proactive standpoint, we also are trying to be a lot more consultative. Our consultants and our account executives spend a lot of time working with our clients proactively about industry trends, showing them blogs and getting blogs in front of them about what's coming in their industry, what's coming in the market of HCM and compliance and all those different things, in an attempt to understand what their questions are going to be next month and answer them 30 days ahead of time so they don't have to call in. And it's a challenge, and it goes back to stuff Gil talked about earlier about identifying your client and the style they communicate in and understanding what are they going to want. Are they a thinker? Are they somebody that needs a quick answer? So there's no easy silver bullet here, but I truly do believe that your customer needs are problem resolution. There's not much more than that when you think about what a customer wants, and you've got to tactically but consultatively anticipate what they need through those methods.
Thanks, Tracy. Hey, Gil, I'd like to ask you to step in here. You know, one of the really challenging things, and Ali talked about this earlier, when it comes to anticipating the intent of a consumer, is to do that in real time. And Tracy, I like your answer that that agents still today, that the person who's conducting the interaction still should have the facility, as long as you equip them with the information that they need relative to who the person is, what they've done in the past, and kind of where they've been most recently, that they can make that decision. I'm just curious to know, from like a machine learning perspective and intent modeling, what is your perspective about how that can be done and how that can be done maybe even in real time?
So everything that Tracy mentioned is absolutely correct. I mean, it's problem resolution, but there's also one thing that we do is with our system, I'll just call it our claim tracking system, is we have a lot of data that gets populated. And so our CSOs are responsible for holding service consultations with each of their customers. And I'm talking more on the dedicated side, where they will meet with them regularly to go over, like, this is what you called us for. Did you realize that if you signed up for this product, you would not have to go through XYZ? So it's really looking at what can make your life simpler, how it will be much easier to do business with us, for you, for ourselves as well. What is it that you need? So we constantly are reviewing our system's called Service View. So we constantly review our Service View data to look at, why are they calling us? What is the issue? Is there a pattern? Is there something that we can do then to give them relief, to say, you don't need to call us on this. You can actually now pull this up online. Because that is some of the stuff that we are hearing from our customers, is that they really want self-service. They really, in a lot of ways, don't want to call us, and we recognize that. I mean, if we look at it just from our day-to-day personal lives, I rarely call a company to get something resolved. I'll go online to their website to see if there's a way to transact online. So that's a lot of what we're looking at, is there a way that they can transact with us online? And that way, if they do need to speak with someone, we're available for them, but we want to give them self-service functionality.
That's great. So Ali, just a kind of same question to you for your environment when it comes to anticipating consumer intent and perhaps being able to do that in real time.
Yeah, it is a tough one. I mean, we're looking at, you spoke a bit about predictive modeling. We're dabbling in that right now with big data. So one of the things we're kind of looking at is even just all of the live chat conversations that we have. We're data mining that, and we're actually doing sentiment analysis, for instance, to try and even predict a net promoter score. Is someone more likely to be a promoter or a detractor based on, their previous transactions? And then, eventually we want to get into a place where we can render that in a very easily digestible way to our front lines across the various channels. And so, what that does is it gives additional context. So, you've got the business pushing in different offers and promotions and things like that. So when someone takes a call from a customer, understanding that context, understanding that history, and being able to anticipate, what their concern might be or where they might go based on, their previous interactions is critical. Because, if someone has an issue that, hasn't been resolved, or the last time they called in, it was a really difficult conversation, you may want to treat them differently on this interaction, regardless of what it is, because of that. You may not want to, try and upsell them on this call because of that. So the basic foundational capabilities are there. I think, Tracy and Gil have touched on some of those. Where we're trying to get to is that predictive modeling aspect, which also then really enables personalization, both in terms of support as well as offers.
Yeah, it's sort of very futuristic, right, in terms of being able to collect data in real time, format the data in real time, and then perform some kind of analysis, using algorithms that would determine consumer intent. That's pretty much next layer kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I think that this combination though of the machine capability to engage in prediction, along with everything that everyone's talked about thus far, and that is the agent's ability to predict, right, based on that data, and fusing those two together seems to be the best way to identify the right next best action, whatever that might be in the context of the journey. And another one of the keys there really is being able to maintain that prediction layer and do it across channels and across time spans. So if somebody calls in to engage in some kind of a transaction this morning, and maybe they get interrupted, and then they come back online the next day, could we know who they are, what they were doing yesterday in the phone channel, and then pick that up in the say the chat channel or even an online channel of some sort?
Exactly.
So I think those are some of the those are some of the unique opportunities that we're being presented with, and the technology isn't necessarily quite there. I think that there are some places where we can do it, where the industry is advancing and there's opportunities to do that on a journey-by-journey basis. But back to your earlier point, Ali, about not boiling the ocean, we kind of got to be selective about these individual journeys, right?
Yes.
So let's move on to the next question. Tracy, I'm going to ask you to kick us off, and that is, which metrics matter? So how can you measure and quantify success in this multi-channel environment?
Yeah, and I think we have talked a lot about this, and all of us have mentioned different metrics. For me and for our team here, there are two really that matter, and it becomes to the retention of your customer base, and you can also NPS scores. If you're doing it right, if you're doing service the way it needs to be done, your customers will continue to come back and they'll stay with you. And when asked, they will provide those promoter scores around NPS. If you're not doing it right, they'll leave because there's many other competitors out there that can provide the same service, and they'll give you poor NPS scores. So those are really the two key ones. And I want to give a quick little anecdote, because it's a question I plan on taking up to some of our client experience experts here at ADP. I happened to be on a call this morning where I was asking for some help through one of the places I use all the time. And their one question after I went through my service call with them was, would you hire this customer service rep in your organization? And I thought that was really telling, because I thought they answered my question, yes. Would I hire them is how they spoke with me, how they knew me, and all the stuff we've all been talking about. And it really rephrased what success is when you have a customer interaction for me.
That's really great. Gil, would ask you to kind of follow up. One of the trends here that's sort of reemerging, and this has been a statistic that we've tracked in the contact center space. Sounds like all of us have been in the space 20 plus years. But the agent satisfaction, the old ASAT rule, right? Is that something that you're tracking as well?
Yeah, but first I just want to comment on Tracy's comment about would you hire this CSO, which is funny because many of our CSOs have been hired by our customers after they've been working with them for so long, especially because they now know them so well and they know their business so well that when there's an opening, it's funny. That's where we end up losing many of our CSOs is to basically our prior customers. But yeah, so a lot of what we do is trying to move away from what was considered a typical call center metrics. I mean, we're not focusing on average hold time, as I said earlier, or talk time. We're really looking around case resolution. Was the case resolved within the same day, or was it resolved within what we consider a target completion date, knowing that it may take longer to resolve, and then the follow-up. We also have we do quality monitoring of all of our CSOs. I mean, it's random, but we'll focus mostly on like the new hires just to make sure that they're not picking up behaviors that we feel are not part of the values that we offer here, so that they can be trained and retrained to answer the question. So we see a lot of our quality scores. The quality scores seem to reflect are very high, and so we're seeing a lot of that translate into the customer surveys then that come back from our customers. So that's another way that we're able to measure our success, is looking at our customer satisfaction scores. I'm now thinking I should probably add that, would you hire our CSO question? But right now, from an overall satisfaction, it's all about like, was this effortless, basically, or I don't know exactly the question, but it was something about effort. How much effort did it take? And if it's a good score on that, then we know that we were able to resolve that customer, and usually they'll respond positively.
That's great. So let's move on to our last question. We've got just about 5 minutes left for this portion of the session today. And then at the top of the hour, we're going to go into Q&A. And so if you have any questions for anyone on the panel individually or just as a group, if you will type that into the chat section of your window, and we'll get to yours as quickly as we can. Last question for the panel here. For your company, how will the interaction landscape be different in 5 years? And Gil, I'll ask you to go first.
Yeah, so it's funny because we've actually been giving this a lot of thought already. In fact, my leadership team, we've been working for the last 2 months on what we've titled Vision 2020. So it's really a 4-year outlook of where we see our business going. And so it's interesting to get the perspective from my leaders who also are talking to customers and understanding what the customers' needs are. One of the things that we're focusing on is the use of interactive tools. Obviously, you've said a lot about this in your presentation, so I feel like we're aligned there. It's all about where do we want to go with email. We know email is growing, and so do we need to focus more on our email channel and how we utilize that. As I stated, we are piloting chat right now, and we're also piloting text. But to Ali's point, we don't know if this is an offering that we would give all of our customers because it may not make sense, but we're identifying customers that we feel may benefit off of this and who may be looking forward to something like this. I mean, a good example is when I've gone out to meet with customers, it's interesting because I'm in San Francisco, and so if I'm visiting a customer in San Francisco, I'm noticing that a lot of the people that work there are, to your point, millennials, and they don't want to really pick up a phone and call us. So we're starting to recognize that there's going to be certain base of customers that would really want to be able to communicate with us virtually or do something self-service-wise. So one of the things we're looking at is YouTube videos. The way people use YouTube today in our own personal lives is we look something up to see how do we do something, and then there's a YouTube video on it, and it actually walks us through the process. So we're looking at that in our cases to say, hey, how do you send a wire? How do you, process an ACH payment? We're thinking of those kind of videos so that way our customers can then just log on to that, and they don't have to call us. So it also helps our call volume if that's the channel that they would rather go through. We're also focusing on continuous process simplification. So what that means is, today we recognize that they'll call us for something, and right now we'll have to move that case over to a provider group or someone internal here at Wells Fargo. So some of the questions we're asking is like, why couldn't we just do it all ourselves, one-stop shop? So let's say they're tracing a wire, right now we'll work with our wire department closely to get that answer. But if we had the same tools that the wire group is looking at, what's to stop us from technology having all of those tools right in front of our CSO so they can look up the answer themselves or do a transaction that doesn't require passing that off to another provider group. So it's basically that one-stop shop and resolution, same day, and it's more efficient. So really, we are moving towards what we consider an engagement center, which is the whole multi-channel, omni-channel, preference-driven. We recognize that servicing the customer is not processing the customer. We are looking at more enhanced self-service capabilities, and then to streamline and simplify the team member and customer experience is our goal.
That's great. That's great. So just 60 seconds, Tracy, if you could give your vision on what the landscape will look like for you in 5 years.
Yeah, and it's very similar to what Gil's describing. We're striving to go through take the actions that you've already defined, that you defined in the presentation earlier, is how do we truly link together all the different channels that our clients get to us and actually open more channels? How do we let them come in from different ways through apps and track all of that? So we don't have a cool name like Vision 2020, so got to get on that. But it really is that really looking forward to say, what are the Gen Zs going to need in the future, and how do we deliver that? So our landscape changes every 6 months. And so it will be very different in the next 5 years, and it will be very similar to what you're talking about in your presentation before.
Great. Thanks, Tracy. And Ali, we'll finish with you.
Yeah, I mean, I would really just echo what Gil and Tracy mentioned. We know things are moving digital. That's the customer expectations. It's all about saving the customer time, less effort. We know digital is the route to enable that, and so certainly leveraging the app. We want to do a lot more there. It's we see customers using that for more and more services. So essentially, what we see is customers managing everything on their own through the app, through mobile web, whether it be support, submitting tickets, self-diagnostics, checking up on issues. So we want to make sure we enable that. There's always going to be a place for high-touch support, whether it be retail or on the phone, but we want to use those in much more targeted, strategic ways, whether it's for certain segments or certain scenarios. So I see that being more catered and more personalized and deployed on an as-needed basis, but the vast majority of support and experiences we certainly see going through the digital platforms.
That's awesome. Hey, much appreciated. So I think that ends the panel portion of our discussion today. Molly, I'm going to turn it back over to you for Q&A.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Reagan. And thank you to all of the panelists for doing such a great job. I think that was a really great and engaging discussion. So we're now going to review some of the questions that were submitted by the audience during the discussion for the time that we have remaining. So this first question actually came in for you, Tracy, as a follow-up to something you were discussing earlier. And the question is, how do you handle a situation when the designated rep leaves? Tracy, any thoughts on that one?
Oh, sorry, I started talking but was on mute, and so it's good to
no worries.
So, yeah, that's an extremely good question, and there's a couple things that we do to help with that. Number one, every rep is in what we call a pod structure. So there's a designated rep, a named backup, and then a third and a fourth backup in the process that as the person takes vacation or if they get delayed on another call, there's at least 2 to 3 other people that are familiar enough with the client and have been introduced to the client. So the relationship isn't just to that one designated rep. That's just the person that we strive to have them talk to the most. So if and when our reps leave, get promoted or whatever, there is a person that we can immediately slide into that space that the client knows and has worked with throughout, the time period that they've worked with. It's never easy. It's hard because clients do get connected and make that emotional connection. But that backup pod plan has worked out very well for us.
That's great, Tracy. Thanks for answering that question. And this next question, Gil, is actually for you. So referencing something that you were discussing earlier as well, the question is, how do you define the 4 customer types that Wells Fargo uses?
So I don't know if this is an external training, but I know that internally our training group has taken that and defined it and has put our CSOs through that course. I did reach out to my learning and development person before that to say, is this an external program that we came from? And he said, well, I believe that could be something that's used, but Wells Fargo has taken it and then put their own spin on it, I guess. But we do have a matrix of all the different types that I just talked about, and then as they're going through the training, it helps them to identify, oh, that person is a relator, oh, that person is more of a thinker, so I should adjust my communication style and flex to that style.
Got it. Thanks so much, Gil. So this next question is, what are some key factors you look for in a communication training program? So I know everyone spoke to this a bit. Ali, maybe you could kick it off and start with your response to this one.
So in a communications training program, I'm assuming, is that for your frontline representatives or?
Yeah, exactly.
Staff? Okay, I'll make that assumption. I think it actually goes back to what Gil is doing. The key word I would say is empathy, right? So you want to make sure that training is allowing your representatives to empathize with the customer. And there's no better way to do that than to use true customer persona. So I really like what Gil is talking about. We do something similar at Rogers where you want to look at across your base and you can be really scientific about it. I think it's an art and a science, right? So you want to look at, segmentation across your customer base, look at not only demographic traits, but also behaviors. And what that allows you to do is then come up with the, I forgot the segments that Gil was mentioning, but the listener, and actually make that real. And so what I would say is when we're looking at communications training programs, use personas, put the customers in there, use customer journeys. The more that it allows reps to actually relate to customers, the more they're going to empathize with them. And then what you can do is based on understanding what those customer needs are, it'll allow your reps to communicate more effectively. If you're not framing it in that sense, it's really difficult for people to get on board and adjust their style based on different customer needs.
That's great. Thanks, Allie. Reagan, Tracy, Gil, did you want to weigh in on that question as well? I think that's an interesting one that we can speak a bit to.
Yeah, I think this is Tracy. I just have to agree with what Allie said. I don't think I have anything extra to add. It's about that empathy, creating that empathy and knowing your client. Those are the two critical things when you're creating a communication program.
That's great.
So Reagan, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'll just like to reiterate that a human agent being able to anticipate needs and gather and collect data in real time and then make a decision is pretty tough, right? Particularly, again, going back to the example of Khloe that I gave in the beginning. It's easy if Khloe walks into your boutique every week, you know what she likes. But if it's just this random interaction, that pops up on your screen next and so wants to chat or whatever the case may be, it's really tough. And I think one of the trends that I see emerging rapidly is enabling agents with some of the analysis and data that machines are performing on consumers and on that interaction specifically. So I'll give you an example. If someone is looking for a new phone and they come to a website, and let's say that they're not a Rogers customer today, but they're on Rogers' website and they're looking for a new phone. So maybe you don't know too much about them, but there are a few things that you do know. You do know what pages they've been to. Maybe they interacted with a virtual agent or the bot and typed a question about a particular plan and got an answer, and that referred them to a chat. If you can present the agent with all of that data, and maybe you've even mined the data, you have performed some natural language processing, text analysis, and said, this is what this person really wants to know or is really trying to do. If you can combine the human agent intelligence with this machine learning intelligence and then present and enable the agent with that, I think we're beginning to see that creates some real efficiencies, some real effectiveness, and drive some of that brand affinity.
Great. Thanks so much, Reagan. And this final question, Tracy, I was hoping maybe we could hand this one over to you to respond to first, is how are we collaborating with other departments, whether it be IT, marketing, ops, et cetera, to support your customer strategy?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And it's a challenge I think every organization faces. But we have found it's around, we've just talked about how we collaborate with our clients and our customers and know our customers. You have to take some of those same learnings and bring that internally. And so it's easier for our group to collaborate with our IT, our development, our technical services, because we're all kind of that service structure. But bringing in the marketing teams and some of our other teams, I mentioned that group earlier that's led by one of our DVPs, Beth Sampieri, they're our client experience team. And one thing that they've done that's so critical to us is she's assigned one of her VPs directly to our regional support, so we can be more effective and we can close those lines between that traditional corporate structure and regional structure. So to me, I would tell you the number one thing to ensure you're communicating and collaborating and growing internally is that you have the key players from each of those groups meeting regularly, sharing best practices, and reviewing trends. They can't be assumptions. They can't be theories. They might start there. They have to be based in fact so you can create your business case on how you want to build out your customer experience and build out your service teams to improve that customer experience. But to me, it all comes back to collaboration, communication, and ownership. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, Tracy, I think that was really great. Reagan or Gil or Allie, would you like to weigh in on that one as well?
I mean, this is Gil, and I don't really have much to add. Everything that Tracy said, it seems like her company is my company. How weird. But we're doing basically all the same things. We communicate well with our technology team since we're always involved with them through enhancements or any kind of production issues. With our product marketing teams, we meet with them regularly to provide the business case as to why we should enhance a certain product so that way their product becomes more profitable if we're able to reduce the expense that's associated with it. And then we also have a customer experience team that will help us, that goes out to meet with customers. We actually meet with customers, which is what we're required to do regularly. And then we'll also bring along our customer experience team, who then will ask them questions about their business, what we could do to help improve their business.
Yeah, it's Ali. I agree with everything that's said. The only couple things I'd add to that is, at Rogers, we're taking a journey-based approach to everything we do. So just like, we're trying to get our staff, our frontline agents to understand the personas, understand the customers. You've got to do that across the org at all levels. You've got to humanize it. You've got to get people to understand what the experience impacts are for the business decisions that are being made, and making sure that those are made in context. And the other big piece is, Tracy mentioned having the data. You've got to measure the data. You've got to present the data, and you've got to mine it and draw insights from it. So, NPS has been a key currency for us, and, making sure that you're actively monitoring, measuring NPS, and then drilling down on the insights derived from it, whether it be customer verbatim, using some of the big data analytics capabilities you have to present those insights back to the business so you can make smart decisions.
Great. Thank you so much. So that wraps it up for today. Thank you again to our incredible panelists and to Reagan for moderating the session. And I wanted to thank everyone else for joining us and listening in to this fantastic virtual event. As I mentioned, you'll all receive a link to a brief survey about your experience today, and we would appreciate you sharing your candid feedback with us. You will also receive a follow-up email with the recording within 48 hours. Thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your day.